Welcome to Bible for Modern Minds podcast.
So our mission today is to give you a shortcut, really, to one of the most intense personal stories we have ever synthesized.
Yeah, this is a big one.
We're diving into a single source, a really comprehensive testimony that maps out this decades-long spiritual journey.
And it tracks one person from, the absolute floor of despair all the way to becoming the president of an 80-year-old ministerial organization.
Okay, so let's try to unpack the starting line here. The journey kicks off in the pretty rough streets of Brooklyn.
Right.
Our subject goes through some really deep trauma very early on. His parents divorced when he's just 10, and a lot of that was fueled by his father's struggles with alcoholism.
And that broken home, it just leaves him feeling completely miserable. The source uses words like pointless. He was, genuinely questioning his will to live.
It's crucial for you to get this right at the top, though, the core conflict.
Yes, this is not some gradual, gentle awakening story.
Not at all.
This is about someone who spent over 15 years actively fighting, running, from a conviction that was planted way back in his childhood.
And our goal here is to trace how these huge external events, we're talking 9/11, military service, profound personal loss, how they were almost used like navigational tools.
Forcing him back onto a path that he was desperately trying to get away from.
And that path, it started with this one moment, a moment she tried to forget for, like a decade and a half?
Oh, yeah.
He's 10 years old, in a confirmation class in the basement of a Methodist church in Flatbush, Brooklyn.
And he describes hearing an audible voice. Not, a feeling or an intuition, but a clear sound.
And the voice says, I want you to do this one day.
As it's pointing at something specific, right? A silhouette in the gloom, a desk, big chair, bookshelves.
A pastor's office. Unmistakable.
And his reaction wasn't awe or confusion.
No, it was immediate, visceral rejection. Just absolutely not. Wrong guy. Not happening.
So this deeply personal supernatural calling is met with a deeply personal no way.
Okay, so fast forward to high school. You can really see the results of that internal misery playing out.
Oh, yeah. By 11th grade, he's failing.
He's failing. He's dealing with the pressure of gang recruitment, just kind of drifting. It took a really stark warning from a guidance counselor to wake him up.
Basically telling him he was going to flunk out.
Exactly. And that was the first time, really, that we see him just pull himself up by sheer force of will. He had 1 year to fix the last 3.
And he does it. He channels everything into it, makes the honor roll his senior year. So he gets the academic focus, but that big existential question is still just raging underneath.
And then that fragile focus he'd built, it was absolutely shattered by 9/11. He's in a history class in Brooklyn. The news breaks. He runs to the window.
And he sees it. He sees both planes crash into the Twin Towers, witnesses the entire skyline collapse right in front of him.
The trauma was just immediate, but also so personal. He watched his parents walk back across the bridge from Manhattan, just covered in soot.
And that moment was the turning point for his identity. He realized he didn't want to be a passive victim anymore.
The source puts it beautifully. It says, a warrior came out of me, out of nowhere.
So he takes that drive and turns it into a career path.
Right. His dad loved Top Gun, so he wanted to be a fighter pilot. He didn't have the 4-year degree for that, so he joins the Air Force, does really well on the ASAP.
That's the military entrance exam.
And he ends up becoming an airborne battle manager.
And we should probably pause on the technical stuff here because it's important. He wasn't just fixing planes. He was on an E3 Sentry AWACS platform.
What does that mean exactly?
It means he was doing intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance ISR. He's tracking hostile aircraft, friendly aircraft. He's literally the eye in the sky.
Which is fascinating because that military discipline, that constant tracking and observation, it totally parallels his internal life.
That's it. He didn't just join the military to serve. He joined because 9/11 basically crystallized his one big question.
If life can be taken away from all of us in an instance, what's the purpose of life?
Exactly. He used the Air Force as a vehicle for a philosophical quest.
And that quest really hits its peak when he's stationed in Okinawa, Japan.
Right. So he's completely removed from his old life. He's in a largely Buddhist country, which kind of creates this spiritual vacuum where his search can just intensify.
He starts what he calls this massive self-directed research project. He was really influenced by his grandfather, who was a philosopher, and he approached it like a truther.
A truther, I like that.
Yeah. He studied the top 25 major world religions, using the early internet, Wikipedia, digging into the Quran, the Torah, the Bible, all of it.
So he's coming at faith through pure intellect, trying to synthesize it all like it's a philosophical database.
And he narrows it down to the big three monotheistic faiths: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam.
And his conclusion, after cross-referencing all of it, was pretty stark. He said by squishing them together, one figure just consistently popped out.
And for him, that figure was Jesus.
But the source makes it so clear that an intellectual conclusion wasn't going to be enough. Not after 15 years of resistance. He needed something more.
He needed that experiential confirmation, and he remembers the childhood moment in confirmation class where his mother touched his leg, and he felt that electric surge.
Which he later identified as a spiritual encounter, right?
Exactly. And then in Okinawa, the signs just start piling up. While he's wrestling with all this research, strangers, even local Okinawan people, are coming up to him out of the blue, asking him to go to church.
He realized it wasn't a coincidence.
No, he thought, I think God is trying to get me to go to church.
So that combination, the intense intellectual conviction, plus this constant external pressure, it all leads to this turning point when he's 25.
He finally goes to the base chapel, and he was partly pushed into it because a higher-ranking staff sergeant, this elder bird, was the one who invited him.
And in that chapel, it wasn't subtle. It was a direct confrontation.
A visiting pastor points right at him and just declares, "Son, you have a lot of unforgiveness."
And that was it. The moment of reckoning for all that anger he'd been holding on to about the divorce, he finally admits his anger was misplaced. It was toward his mother.
And the resistance just breaks. He feels immediately liberated. The weight is just gone.
And this is where the intellectual part and the childhood experience, they just collide.
Yes. In that split second of surrender, he felt the exact same electric surge from when he was a kid. But this time, it went from the crown of his head to the soles of his feet.
And that confirmed it. The calling he'd been running from was real.
The change was radical and immediate. He threw away all his hip-hop, rap, reggae CDs, got rid of his tattoos, his piercings. He was done running.
Which then, of course, creates an immediate conflict with his military career.
Right. He thought about becoming a chaplain, but the military policy required using a generic term like God or the higher power.
And after his whole 25-year journey to specifically land on Jesus, he felt like he couldn't compromise on the name.
He refused. And that meant his military career was over. He left honorably when his term was up, around May or June of 2009.
And he had this very clear, almost monastic plan, right? Move to Grenada, grow a beard like Moses.
And just dedicate himself entirely to reading the Bible.
But before he could even start that quiet life, crisis hits.
3:00 a.m. Halloween. He gets this terrifying call. His brother's been in a critical car accident, full coma.
So the philosophical search is over. Now the raw emotional testing begins.
On that 16-hour flight back to California, facing the very real chance of losing his brother, he makes the ultimate surrender.
A tearful, desperate vow. He tells God, if you take my life, you can save my brother's life. Whatever you want me to do, I'll do it.
And that vow, it sealed the deal. Then came what his mother called the Day 7 miracle.
She claimed God told her he would wake up on the 7th day.
He was skeptical, but after his vow, he was fully committed. So he and his mother are at the bedside on that 7th day, praying.
And they just asked for a simple sign.
And his brother, who's still deep in a coma, slowly raises a shaking thumb. And then he nods. He wakes up.
Wow. And even though he needed major brain surgery, part of his skull removed, that experience for our subject, it just solidified everything, proved to him that Jesus was a miracle worker who could intervene directly.
So yeah, the plans for a quiet life in Grenada officially derailed.
They're out the window.
He comes back to his mother's church for just a week-long visit, planning to finalize his travel. But, you know, Providence had other ideas.
He meets his future wife. He thought she was, and I'm quoting, totally out of my league, worshiping up on the altar.
They connected so fast, and he realized that after searching the entire world, the person he was meant to be with was right there in his old Brooklyn neighborhood.
And when he committed this time, he committed fast. No more running.
Proposed in August, married by December 2009, a 6-month whirlwind. It just shows you the conviction he was operating with.
But the immediate aftermath of getting married and going all in on ministry was not some fairy tale. The source describes this period of intense spiritual warfare.
He felt the All hell and all heaven were fighting for me. This wasn't just, feeling discouraged. It was a profound crisis.
It included an experience of what he calls possession and deliverance, an intense spiritual event where he actually lost control of his body. He was walking like a robot, straight into oncoming traffic on Flatbush Avenue.
I mean, that's a physical challenge. And during all this inner turmoil, he punched and broke a mirror in his mother's house.
He remembers seeing a billboard during this time, which he took as a direct message from God. It said, "Power without control is chaos."
So it was a lesson. He needed discernment and control to go along with the raw spiritual power he was experiencing.
It's almost like his Air Force training in ISR, that intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, suddenly had a spiritual parallel. He needed observation and control.
3 years after that, he follows another audible command and moves to Orlando, Florida. He starts working at the Holy Land Experience.
And this wasn't just a job. He was ministering pretty much 24/7, constantly praying for people, sharing the gospel, just completely solidifying his path.
That hands-on ministry led to formal recognition, and quickly. He was licensed and ordained by the American Evangelical Christian Church, the AECC.
And his rise in that organization was just meteoric. State coordinator, regional director, and then the ultimate ask to become the president of the entire 80-year-old body.
This professional ascent came with the most painful personal test of his life, profound loss.
Yeah, the source tracks this so clearly, and it's brutal. He lost his first child when he got licensed, he lost his second when he got ordained, and he lost his third when he planted the church.
This is a major pivot in the story. It led him to what he called his Moses hitting the rock moment.
For anyone who doesn't know the reference, that's when Moses, out of pure frustration, strikes a rock to get water instead of speaking to it like God commanded. It's a moment of anger, a lapse in trust.
And it perfectly mirrored his own wrestling with God over this repeated, devastating loss. The pain was just immense.
It was compounded, too. He had to go bury his grandfather in Granada, a prestigious funeral, the prime minister was there, all while facing the very real possibility that his male lineage was ending with him.
But that intense despair, it was eventually broken. His wife received a vision of a day 4 miracle.
And they made a point to differentiate that. It wasn't the third-day resurrection. This was something new, a personal commitment to hope, even after so much failure.
And the restoration that followed was just staggering. After taking a huge risk, they had their son, Alonia Lauren-Law, their rainbow baby.
Then through the foster care system, they received a 10-month-old baby girl on Christmas Day. Suddenly, the fear of losing his lineage is replaced by, essentially having twins.
And at the same time, he took this temporary job as a Christian junior high school teacher. The kids called him Mr. Law.
And he felt God was using that job to restore his hope. A subtle reminder of the promise to Abraham that his descendants would be as many as the sands of the sea.
So what does this whole incredibly complex journey actually mean? Well, the conclusion, according to the source, is all about identity.
Yeah, despite all his titles, pastor, president, elder, God, was showing him that he was missing a foundational identity. He was still trying to prove himself.
God was communicating this one core message to him. You've always been the son of a king.
Which is the ultimate contrast to the distorted, alcoholic father figure he grew up with. His whole struggle with purpose was rooted in not accepting his inherent spiritual identity first.
And accepting that identity translated directly into spiritual authority. He realized power came from knowing God and a father-son dynamic.
And that shift allowed him to step into a completely different level of ministry, including speaking in tongues and prophesying.
He even described the spiritual growth using an analogy from the anime Dragon Ball Z, like he was gaining power levels.
It's been such a long road from that church basement in Flatbush to leading a national organization.
Yeah. He's now 16 years married, 8 years pastoring his own ministry, Most High King Ministries, and his mission is just intense discipleship.
And if you, listening to this, are serving in ministry or really any demanding field, and you feel exhausted or disappointed, the source gives some really powerful final advice.
What's that?
Do not view God as a vending machine, where you put something in and expect a perfect output every time. If you can't see his hand in your circumstances, trust his character.
Because his character is reliable. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever.
Exactly.
And that advice, it forces us to confront our own perceptions. Our subject notes that despite his own negative experiences with judgmental Christians, he was even kicked out of a church at one point. Jesus' character never failed him.
Which echoes that famous sentiment he provided in the source material. Gandhi said, I don't like your Christians, but I love your Christ.
So we'll leave you to consider this. How much of your own faith, or maybe your skepticism, is based on the visible, often fallible works of imperfect people versus the invisible, unchanging nature of the entity they claim to serve?